Jonathan is going to share a bit of his testimony with us. So let's give Jonathan a round of applause. There you go. Over to you.
Testing.
Oh, it's not on. That might be good.
Hello.
Ooh, you're on.
Hello. It's taken me 10 years to get this mic. So, excited. I've only got 5 minutes. I don't want to go on Roger's time, because he's going to try and fit the whole Bible into one of his sermons as normal. And I made an agreement with the Lord that if I could stay out of prison for 10 years, I'd give my testimony. So that's probably got you hooked. As a child, I was incredibly naughty. I was abhorrent and abysmal. Those were words I often heard spoke about when it came to me. Teachers were involved. My mum was called into school quite often because I was often so terrible I wouldn't stay in the lesson. I would go out. My mum got a call. Mrs. Gravett, yes, your son's in the playground. Okay, what's wrong with that? It's the English lesson. I just said it's boring. I'm going out to play. I was banned from parties, school parties. I went to Cubs once, then I was told never to bring the child back again. I was told I couldn't go to anything because I struggled with mental health and I had a short attention span, very hyperactive, very naughty, and everybody labelled me as stupid, thick and lazy. Teachers said I'd never amount to anything, and generally I didn't do very well at anything. Yet when I was 12 years old and I went home from school, I was a 12-year-old writing computer programs on the first computers that had come out. I was running a window cleaning business, employing children at school, my friends. Not much to their parents' surprise, because they weren't doing their homework and getting in as much trouble as me. And also a car washing business. Starting a window cleaning round is very easy when you're 12. You just steal a ladder out of someone's garden. You can't go to prison for that. So I carried on through life, and as I became a teenager, I actually got worse. I found I quite enjoyed fighting, getting into trouble, causing pranks and mischievousness at school. I could basically sit still for 5 minutes, probably not even that long, and I struggle with mental health. I get twitches, as you notice right now. I've got one, and it's very hard and very much of a oppressive, depressing struggle you get. But at school I was terrible, absolutely terrible. But I was good at one thing at school. Well, let's not say good. Let's say I was, I'm not sure what the word is now actually. I did one thing consistently at school, and that's I failed every exam I took. I came out of school with no GCSEs at all. I got F's and G's. I don't think they went much lower than that, basically. Big disappointment to my family. My dad was a prison governor for 26 years. My mum was an educated lady. My 2 sisters were golden and never did any wrong. I was always in trouble. Oh, look at me now, Joy and Faye, doing something good after 48 years. And basically, I came out of school with nothing, but I did find an interest that caught my attention, and that was in computer science and engineering. I did 3 years in that. I did quite well at that, actually. But I'm not going to talk about me and the things that went well. I'm going to talk about mental health struggles I had, and I'm going to talk about my life. And in my 20s, I was a churchgoer. I went to the church weekends. I went to everything. I was always going up for prayer for mental health problems, and I didn't know anything about mental health back then. I would say, why do I get twitches? Why do I have to blink? Why do I have to check my door? Why do I have to ask questions? Why do I have to drive around in circles? Why do I have to do these things? And I would always get prayed for. My parents always said to me, just stop it. Get control and stop it. No one else is doing it. And that was the advice you got in the 80s and 90s, because mental health wasn't very well known. I was uncontrollable still, even though I went to church. I had near-death experiences. I drove terribly fast. I drove motorbikes. I remember driving too fast in a truck and rolled it off a cliff edge 7 times. It caught fire, and God saved me. I messed around on a surfboard in the winter and got swept out to sea in the channel. And after about 2 hours, my fingers were going blue, my arms were going blue, and I was slipping off the surfboard, and I just thought, well, I'm going to die. God saved me. I've got a list of things where God actually came and saved me. I'm going to move forward. And when I was 33, is that the age Jesus was crucified? I think so. It's a fairly good year. Well, it wasn't a good year for me. I was Googling I was Googling habits, twitches, things. All the things I had, I was just sitting on a computer. And OCD came up, and I'd never heard of it. And I read through these stories of OCD, and I was, crikey, this is me down to a T. This is exactly what I suffer with. I thought I was alone. I broke down in tears. I was overwhelmed, and I was relieved. But then I was angry. And I was angry with God for never healing me, never letting me know what I suffered with, never doing anything to help relieve any of the struggles that stopped me having relationships, stopped me doing many, many things in my life through feeling like I was a reject and I was a weirdo. Then I was very angry with my parents when I went to see them and told them I thought they would understand. And I love my mum and dad dearly, but they gave me good advice for the time. It was 2002. And they said to me, get a grasp on it, stop doing it, do not go and see a doctor, you'll get labelled as someone with mental health problems. So I was really angry because it was like nobody understood me. So I said, I'm not going to church anymore. I hate Christians. I hate anything to do with God. I hate my parents. I changed my surname by Deepole in defiance, changed it back now, and I just went off the rails. I spent most of my weeks, well, they say drugs, sex, and rock and roll. I wasn't that bad. I replaced rock and roll with getting arrested weekly by the police. Car chases. They were chasing me in the car. They never caught me, but they knew where I lived, so I got into trouble for that. Breaking into places, just being an absolutely terrible, terribly naughty person. And one day I had a meltdown. I finally hit the low. My anger and everything was overflowing. I was furious. And I bumped into somebody I didn't particularly like, and I offered him a free trip to the hospital. There's no kids here, so I beat him up. And it was quite a serious crime because I had done martial arts for 12 years, so I was on the police books for being licensed. That point of my life, I was arrested, and the book was thrown at me. I threw my life away. My life was quite comfortable back then, but my mental health was very depressed. I went homeless, and I went homeless for a bit. Then I was put in a hostel. I was put in a hostel with drug addicts and alcoholics. It was quite good fun for a year. But I could tell you some stories on that, which I won't bother with. And then after a year, I went to the High Court in Wolverhampton, and I had a very serious judge. And my solicitor says, just be careful with this guy. He's going to throw the book at you if you're not respectful. The first thing he said is, if I give you a prison sentence, if I give you a custodial sentence where you don't go to prison, and you see your victim, what will you do? I said, I'll beat him up again. He said, okay, you are a dangerous, violent, evil person. You're going to prison for 5 years. You'll do 1 year in and 4 years out under constant monitoring, and you will be psychologically analysed at Dorothy Patterson's for a year, and you won't have any freedom. So I went to prison. And when I was in prison, I realised, well, I saw where my dad worked. He just retired, fortunately. God works in mysterious ways, I suppose. I was depressed and I was suicidal, and I was so suicidal for 4 months. I just wanted to be dead, not because it was hard in prison, because I hated being locked up for 23 hours a day when I am somebody who can't sit still. I struggle with a minute's silence each year. I normally manage about 50 seconds. And it was really, really hard being in prison. It's an evil, terrible, unhappy place. And when you see glorified stories of people in their cells with PlayStations, that's not really what it's about. It's depressing. 3 times I was going to commit suicide. The first time, I got myself ready. I thought, that's it. Knock on the door. Someone from the chapel had come. God's just sent me to talk to you. Okay, fair enough. That's an inconvenience, but we'll let that one go. The second time it happened, the same thing. A different person to do with the chapel came and said the same sort of thing. Don't know why, Jonathan, but out of all the people here I've been sent to talk to you, God's got something pressing on my heart and I need to talk to you. So I prayed with him. The third time, I broke down and I decided that God must be real, because I didn't believe he was anymore. And he must love me. And I gave my heart back to the Lord. I just asked him in. I just said, okay, let's do it. If you're real, let's do it. And I felt a warmth in that prison. I'd been there 3 months. I still had however months left, 9 months left to do. I felt a warmth inside me. It's the first time I'd felt love and a warmth inside my heart all of that time, for years actually. And that day I changed my life around. I decided to do good in the prison. I decided to tell people I'm a Christian and pray for people and get involved with the church scene there. And that's not an easy thing to do in prison, where you're all meant to be hard and tough and, indestructible, and selfish and grabbing from other people. To be the opposite was very hard, and I had to really put my trust in the Lord. I even wore a thing that said I was a Christian, and I became chapel orderly. I started taking services amongst only about 6 or 8 people, so this is really daunting for me. My sermons went down really well because they were 15 minutes long, and they had lots of swearing in, which goes down really well in prison, ironically. They loved them. When I came out of prison, I'd built my relationship back up with my parents. It was fantastic. And I still had a long way to go. This is 10 years ago now. I had to build myself back up. Do you want me to tell you the story about the stamps? Okay, I said this, I practiced this morning. I thought, don't tell the story about the stamps. Because one, my parents will be annoyed. And it's probably not the best story to tell, but it's not, don't worry, Vicar, it's not too bad. I've always been a businessman, and whilst I was in prison, I realized that when I came out of prison, I was going to need some money. You can't have money in prison, you can't take money out. So I started doing favors. What I would do is I'd buy the tobacco on a Tuesday, and then when it came up to canteen, when everyone was desperate, climbing the walls for tobacco, I'd sell it, swap it for stamps. And I walked out of prison with £170 worth of stamps. You can't go out of prison without being strip searched, so I had them in my bottom cheek. So I walked out like that. Anyway, that gave me a jump start. Let's move on. Sorry, Mum, Dad. They sent me most of the stamps. Over the last 10 years, it has been hard. It hasn't been easy. I did basically come out of prison and have to start again. Not only did I have to prove to the police, to the authorities that I was not going to commit crimes, I had to go and be psychoanalyzed at Dorothy Patterson and prove that I wasn't mental. I had to show to my parents that I had changed my life around. And over the 10 years, I've done that. And it hasn't been easy. But one thing I'll just say to you is God is real for me. And if you throw God away, you're really on your own and you haven't really got very much to hang on to. And I thought I was better than God when I threw him away. I thought I'll run my life much better. And I really got taken to the lowest places where I saw God was real. And it's still a struggle for me daily. I struggle so much with mental health every day. And I now run a mental health channel to help other people and to help myself because it is a real debilitating thing. And I'm going to be going around the country and doing some talks, this is my first, on mental health, Christianity, and just that there's hope for people. So any of you, if you ever want me to pray with you, I'll pray with anybody. You've just got to ask, as long as I'm not having my coffee and cake. Don't interrupt that. I'll just talk to you about anything. Nothing you can really tell me will shock me. I've seen a lot of bad things because I've been an idiot. But now the Lord's got me under his wings, and I'm not perfect. I make mistakes most of the time, but my heart's in the right place. So thank you very much.